Welcome to episode 99 of Rubbish Talk with me, Alasdair.
And me, Jane Bond.
And 99, Jane, eh? 100 next week.
Have you got your plan for 100, Alasdair?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So I was interesting, actually. I was chatting at the Rotary Club of Ayr on Tuesday night. So I used to be, a long time ago, I used to be the worst attending member of the Rotary Club. And their membership used to be old. It's now even older. But in fairness, they do actually have some quite young members. So there's probably people in their 50s, 60s, and then there's people in their 80s. And the person sitting opposite me at dinner is in his 80s. And he was talking about, after I'd spoken, he was talking about waste management in the 1940s. I'm like, I need all this information so I can prepare for 100 years of waste management. So that was interesting. So I've chatted to them a few times, and I talked about landfill ban in Scotland, talked about waste crime, because that's quite topical. I talked about deposit return scheme, and I sort of explained why I'm not a fan. And then I also talked about the Sustainables Academy. So that's, if you remember, we had Louise Robinson on.
Yeah.
And the reason I chatted with that was Rotary's trying to get involved. So they do quite a lot of stuff for schools. So they're trying to get involved with waste management and sustainability at schools.
Okay, because there's a funding. The Sustainable Academy has got a funding call out, actually. It's a bit of a mouthful. The Sustainable Academy is seeking funding for the Resource Revolution Centre competition. And a total of £4,000 is required. The funding ensures the competition raises a high-quality, free national resource for primary schools, community groups and youth organisations. So, which sounds like a good plan to look at learning resources and all of this sort of stuff, which Louise talked about quite a bit more on our episode 65, but
yeah,
it's trying to reach lots of schools and put circular economy and responsible resource use and all that good stuff into the curriculum, basically.
Yeah. So I think they're effectively looking for a company sponsorship, aren't they, to sponsor that fund, if you like, that's going to help them take this forward at the school. So if anybody's interested, we'll put the link in the show notes. It's well worth a look if people are interested. But one of the other interesting things at the dinner was that the Rotary had invited two school teachers, so Karen and Gillian from Dunmilling Primary School in Ayr, and they're doing some great work with the primary schools on the eco schools. And one of the things they did last year, which I shouldn't actually be surprised at this, but they did a project on food waste. And one of the things they discovered was most of the food waste that the kids were producing was actually coming from the fact that they were getting far too much food for their snack. So they were getting sent to school with a jumbo bag of crisps for their morning snack. And so they actually wrote to the parents and said, look, the kids don't actually need a jumbo bag of crisps for a snack, because in an hour's time they're going to get a lunch. And if they eat that jumbo pack of crisps, then they're not going to eat their lunch. So they actually did some quite interesting work in terms of actually cutting down the food waste by sort of educating the parents, which is the whole premise of the whole Eco Schools project. So, but the harder question after I spoke, John Scott, who was the Ayrshire MP, MSP for quite a few years. And obviously I'd been talking about the landfill ban, I'd been talking about waste crime, I'd been talking about issues with DRS, I was talking about the fact that we have all this policy, but we really struggle to implement it. We've got the public appear to be incapable of using a litter bin.
Oh my goodness, Alasdair, you were just doom and gloom then. Hey? It's like, it's the end of the
world. Not quite, but that was that was his point. He said, look, how do we turn this around? How do we look for hope in all this? And it was actually, in a way, I was like, oh, it is, in terms of the waste sector, it is quite doom and gloom at the moment. There's not a lot of cheer and happiness, but then you start thinking about, these teachers doing good work at school, educating the next generation. We've got 2 students in this episode about what they're trying to do and how they're moving forward in their careers. And then if you think about it, we've had 99 episodes of Rubbish Talk, or this will be the 99th, where we're trying to engage the public, change that conversation, educate people a little bit more. And to me, we need to sort of build these foundations again and start from the bottom and actually let people understand how complicated it is and where we need to go. So I managed to turn the doom and gloom and the negativity into a positive. So there we go. That was my Tuesday evening.
Oh, well, gosh, I sat and watched the telly. So, like you say, we have two students today from SRUC Edinburgh University again. We have Cate Satoris, Understanding Single-Use Plastic Habits in UK Supermarkets Evaluating Solutions. And we have Vanessa Fongwa talking about circular solutions for Cameroon's waste crisis. And I've probably just introduced you both and introduced your thing too much now. So I'm going to go back and go start from first principles. So we're delighted to have you on. Cate, I'm going to come to you first. Can you tell our listeners a bit about you, where you're from and what you're studying at uni, and I was going to bombard you with questions, but we'll start with those few questions first and go on to the next ones.
Yeah, perfect. So my name is Cate, and I'm from North Dakota, which is in the US. Currently, I'm pursuing my master's here at the University of Edinburgh in Environment and Development. So we're just looking at how to make life on Earth as good as possible without sacrificing the planet to do so. And as you said, my podcast is about kind of understanding single-use plastic habits in UK supermarkets and trying to see where the solutions are currently. And I created this for my optional course last term, which was Resource Recovery and Circular Economy, which I chose because I've always been very interested in the creativity behind the concept of circular economy and how we can reduce our resource consumption on more of an individual level, like by shifting our habits. And this is why grocery shopping is very interesting to me. It's a part of our daily lives. And so it kind of appears mundane and like it doesn't matter. And it's quite easy not to think very hard about it. But there is so much opportunity within that to reduce kind of our individual footprints. And so it's like even small choices that we make at the store can have big impacts. Maybe you're choosing to buy local or organic or plastic free, or you're bringing your own bag instead of, taking the single-use plastic one from the checkout. But sometimes there's only so much that we can really do within that. And a lot of our choices end up being restricted by the options that these stores have made available to us. And so this was something that I picked up on when I moved to the UK, because back home in the US, you have kind of the option of whether you're going to bag your vegetables in plastic. So maybe you're buying broccoli, you can opt to put it in a plastic bag, or you can just put it right into your basket. And here I really noticed, at least at the supermarkets near me, that that was a choice that was already made for me. It was going to be coming in plastic, which I found a little frustrating and disheartening. So I was very excited to kind of have the opportunity to research it a bit further for my podcast. And I learned a lot, and it was really cool to get some insight on what the UK is doing, especially as an international student. So,
yeah. So is this the first time you've been over?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting. So is this the first time you've been over to study in the UK, or were you in?
Yes,
Yeah.
I had never been to the UK before, so it has really been quite the experience for sure. It's been a lot more different than I expected, which has been very cool, but also a bit overwhelming sometimes too.
Got to ask how different? Why different? What's the good? What's the bad?
The good for me, this is maybe a bit of a nerdy answer, but I love the bus system. I love being able to walk everywhere. I love the tram. It's quite nice to be able to get myself around on my own 2 feet instead of my car. But I do miss,
I like that.
yeah,
I like that.
yeah, I do miss the wide open spaces though. And I think North Dakota is about 700,000 people in total. So it's quite empty. So I miss the peace at times, but I also do love all that comes with living here and all the people and all the opportunities that I have. So it's very, give and take.
I love it. The big plastic count is back. So we've highlighted this in previous years. So this is, I can't remember who actually organised it. We'll share it in the show notes. But from the 9th to the 15th of March, what it tries to do is get people to count the number of bits of plastic they generate in a week. And they tally up all these figures and come up with some horrendous figures about the amount of plastic we actually use. So if anybody's interested in doing that, we'll share that in the show notes. So
it's quite an interesting plastic count, actually. I think we did it a few times, haven't we, from work point of view? So, yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Cate. That was really, really interesting. And then we can get on and listen to your podcast.
So, Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you.
So it's a similar question for me. What's your background? Where you come from? Why Edinburgh? Why the course you're doing? All that good stuff.
Oh, thank you very much for the question. So, I'm Vanessa, and I come from Cameroon. This is actually my first time in the UK. I am studying at the University of Edinburgh, Environmental Sustainability. Why environmental sustainability? I remember growing up, and every Saturdays was meant for dumping dirt. And this time, we were not dumping dirt in landfills, but we're dumping dirt in rivers, these flowing rivers by our house. And I grew up knowing that that was okay until I did my undergraduate studies in biosystems engineering. So when I was doing that, I learned a lot about the effect of or the consequences of dumping dirt in rivers. And then I was intrigued. I wanted to further understand the concept. I wanted to further understand why it was not good to dump dirt in river, because I grew up with that. So it was normal. I felt like it was the best way to do that. And that is why I decided to study environmental sustainability at the University of Edinburgh to understand what my community was doing, which was wrong, and to find solutions to that problem. And that is why I decided to focus my podcast on overflowing landfills in Cameroon, rethinking circular solutions, and in this case, focusing, of course, in Cameroon, because that is where I grew up from and that is my lived experience. And the reason why I chose this is because I've seen the reality firsthand in Bamenda, where I come from, which is not the capital of Cameroon. We generate a very large amount of waste. And then when I moved to Yaoundé, I saw the same experience. Like I witnessed the same thing. And I felt like this is a very pressing problem in Cameroon. Cameroon, for example, alone generates like 6 million tons of waste every year. And all the landfills are overflowing. And it's the same problem in every other region in Cameroon. And that is why I decide, because I've lived this reality, I decided to talk more about this, research about it, and look for solutions that could possibly work. I was not trying to look at high-tech solutions because I don't think that could be the best solution for a developing country like Cameroon. But I was trying to look at people-centric solutions that involved people and more of practicality.
Sounds good. So, similar question to Cate: what's been good about Edinburgh and what's been bad about Edinburgh?
Oh, apart from the weather, Vanessa.
Of course, the weather was going to be the first thing, but I'm going to keep that aside. What has been good about Edinburgh, I love that I can walk to every part of this place. Like, that's the first thing that I actually admire. And the second thing is, I've been intrigued, like seeing different breeds of animals, for example. Like, I mean, I'm used to seeing just one specific kind of dog, but here I see like these very big dogs, the very little ones. And these are things that I saw just like on movies or cartoons, but now I'm able to see them in real life and I'm like, oh wow, does this thing really exist? So I'm really intrigued about that. I like that. And then the people of Edinburgh, super friendly, really, really welcoming. Everyone is so nice in this city, which is something that I'm not very used to because, yeah.
Yeah,
And
good.
what has been bad outside the weather, I really don't think I've had any bad experience here. The weather is the major problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
They say it's such a fascinating course you're on as well, because there's so many people from an international background on the course, isn't there? So it's not just, there are some UK-based people, but it's, a real international feel to the course you're on. What's your intention? Once you finish your qualification, are you going to work in the UK, or your intention go back to Cameroon and make big changes? What are you hoping to do?
Okay, for me, I am hoping to go home to apply the knowledge of what I've studied here. I mean, it would be good to look for creative solutions for the problems back home, especially when it comes to waste management, because I'm really passionate about that. And there's a very big problem in Cameroon about that. So yes, I'm looking to going home to solve these problems. But of course, if an opportunity pops up here, and I might still consider staying here and trying to work from here. I don't know.
Well, I'm actually going. I'm on a call later on today. I'm on a call with. It's called Introduction to Waste Professionals Without Borders, and it's the person that's set up Waste Aid, which is a charity that tries to help try to put experts into developing world to improve their waste management. And what he's trying to set up is like Medicine Sans Frontières, which puts doctors into war, doctors and nurses into war zones. So what he's trying to do is do similar with the waste management sector, and actually put experienced professionals into the countries that really need the help to actually move forward. So he's only just the call today is just a real first introduction and a first trying to get people together to work with this. So there's a huge need. I always say to students, anytime I lecture, I always say, if you want to do the really exciting work, go to the developing world where you've got huge opportunities to make really big, significant changes. So good luck, Vanessa.
Yeah, good
Thank
luck.
you.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you both to Kat and Vanessa. We did actually have a bit of a oversubscription. We've actually got 2 more students that are trying to get on that were a bit slow in replying. They were obviously not checking their emails quite as regularly as maybe should have been. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a bit of a pause from the students, but we'll catch these 2 students in maybe a few weeks' time. So the ones we have left out, we'll catch up with you later on, because I think your podcasts are fascinating. So thank you very much.
Thank you
Okay.
both for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kate, and my podcast is Understanding Single-Use Plastic Habits in UK Supermarkets and Evaluating Solutions. Hello, and welcome to my first ever podcast. My name is Kate, and I'm studying Environment and Development at the postgraduate level here at the University of Edinburgh. I love shifting everyday habits to make our lives more sustainable, which is why I'm excited to discuss my experiences with grocery shopping here in the UK and a strange penchant for plastic that I've noticed. I look forward to sharing supermarkets' single-use plastic problem, their current situation, and their potential future solutions with you all. For some context, I'm from the United States, particularly a red state, where a staggering percentage of the population doesn't even believe in climate change. Upon moving to Scotland, I assumed that practically every part of my daily life would be receiving a sustainable upgrade. Though that's been true for the most part, I've surprisingly found that my grocery runs in the US remain more sustainable than my ones here. Imagine my shock when, on my first trip out, I went to buy some produce and found that everything, from apples to sweet potatoes to tomatoes, were coated in plastic film. It didn't even matter which grocery store I visited. All of them seemed to follow the same protocol of packaging their goods in excess plastic. It appears that this phenomenon is somewhat unique to the UK and has caused uproar in recent years. In fact, the Material Change Index found that an upwards of 51% of grocery products in the UK are covered in unnecessary plastic packaging that can be easily removed or swapped for sustainable alternatives. Most experts blame globalization for being the largest driver of plastic production. With food suddenly having to travel long distances before arriving at your local supermarket, it must be able to withstand the stress and time of travel. Single-use plastic packaging proved itself to be the best answer in maintaining the appearance, nutritional value, and freshness of goods traveling around the globe. Although plastic packaging does have the benefit of being lightweight and therefore reducing emissions during transit, its environmental harms ultimately outweigh any of its benefits. Within the UK, there are a few notable ways that the government and large corporations are attempting to combat plastic packaging. An initiative from supermarkets that shows promise is soft plastic recycling schemes. Currently available at market giants like Tesco or Sainsbury's, these drop-off points provide customers with a way to return their single-use plastic packaging. These soft plastics aren't recyclable at home and are encountered daily in the form of cereal liners, bread bags, and film lids. These schemes seek to prevent materials from being discarded improperly and winding up in landfills, or worse, the environment. However, research conducted in 2023 through 2024 by the UK Environmental Investigation Agency found that most of these returned plastics still end up incinerated rather than recycled. This is due to the lack of soft plastic recycling infrastructure in the UK. Despite best intentions, recycling schemes like this that help facilitate the circularity of plastic packaging appear to be unviable. Attempts to integrate plastic into sustainable efforts simply diverts attention from the true problem, its perpetual overuse. Although the implementation of take-back schemes demonstrates accountability and interaction with sustainable goals on supermarkets' part, it won't be enough to solve the packaging crisis. These schemes are simply a mitigation tactic. This isn't to say that I disapprove of these practices, but rather I'm encouraging supermarkets to look elsewhere for solutions. The packaging habits themselves must be completely overhauled if we wish to achieve a truly sustainable world. In 2023, the UK limited the supply of plastic packaging, decreasing production volume at its source. This encouraged supermarket giants like Sainsbury's and M&S to overhaul their packaging practices, turning away from plastic and towards recyclable paper alternatives. Additionally, the 2022 implementation of the plastic packaging tax requires all businesses that import or manufacture more than 10 tons of plastic packaging per year to use materials containing at least more than 30% recycled plastic. This legislation applies to all supermarket giants, and though it doesn't require a reduction in the amount of plastic used in the market or its elimination, it does encourage companies to keep circularity and sustainable practices in mind. Another notable initiative is the Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, legislation that aims to shift packaging waste responsibility from taxpayers onto the businesses that introduce it to the market in the first place. Not only are producers held legally accountable for plastic packaging collection, sorting, treatment, recycling, and disposal, but as of 2025, they're held financially responsible as well. By applying fees per ton of packaging, the EPR framework discourages corporations from mindlessly using plastic. By providing strong domestic policies for corporations to adhere to, the state can hold producers accountable. Although it would be nice to have producers reduce plastic packaging on their own account, enforcement by greater forces is sometimes needed to get the ball rolling. I think the further development of schemes like EPR is the best way to incentivize corporations to think more sustainably. Without that initial push, they will have little reason to adjust their habits. For produce products, I think the answer is simple. Stop using single-use plastic packaging. In fact, produce has the highest potential for complete packaging elimination. Items like root vegetables and thick-skinned produce are strong enough to withstand travel stress on their own. This renders their packaging a complete waste of resources and pointless environmental pollution. As mentioned, investing in recycling schemes is not enough in itself. We must turn off the plastic tap entirely. As discussed prior, recycling schemes are still a step in the right direction. In 2018, only 12% of plastics were recycled, meaning there is significant room for improvement. Unfortunately, the recycling process can only occur a finite number of times. Eventually, the material will degrade past the point of usability, leaving it to be sent to the landfill and incinerated. Additionally, the infrastructure surrounding UK plastic recycling is underdeveloped and can only do so much. It is important to note, too, that the type of plastic film wrapping used in the supermarket's produce section has no recyclability from the get-go. Therefore, I think the most logical step towards a circular shopping experience would likely be getting rid of pointless plastic packaging entirely. Although some advocate for a shift towards biodegradable packaging, that'd be like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. The issue is use of pointless packaging. No matter what form it takes, it causes environmental harm for no reason. Paper packaging will increase timber extraction, devastating global forests. Bioplastics will require further land development for crop production. Ultimately, no solution holds a candle to eliminating wasteful packaging entirely. Given the recent introduction of plastic packaging implementation in EPR, it's difficult to evaluate their effectiveness. In terms of EPR's potential, we can look at similar implementations across Europe. The UK is not the first country to introduce EPR. France, Belgium, and Germany are among the many to emphasize circularity within their markets. Regardless of the variations among EPR's implementation, stakeholder collaboration, or ongoing effort, it's been shown to strengthen recycling infrastructure and reduce the use of packaging materials. In short, government-driven frameworks have strong potential in reducing the amount of waste we encounter in our daily lives. However, EPR schemes are not enough. Further restrictions on the production of plastic packaging, like the UK did in 2023, would be great for reducing the inflow of plastics onto the market. There's no better way to change habits than by making certain choices unavailable. Although companies do appear to have some inclination towards mindful packaging practices, like the soft plastic recycling take-back schemes, they've been otherwise slow to act. If we want to stop seeing our food mindlessly wrapped in plastic, we need to get stricter with how plastic is produced, allocated, and applied. Ultimately, I think strict government regulation and standards for packaging use has the best potential to reform what supermarket practices look like. Sustainable lifestyles in the UK, though an improvement from my home in the United States, still have a long way to go. I don't think my sweet potatoes will stop being wrapped in plastic anytime soon, although I do appreciate having the option to recycle the film afterwards. After listening to my thoughts today, I hope you've grown more aware of the current situation surrounding plastic packaging in the UK supermarkets. Learning what's currently being implemented is a great way to assert your position on what further needs to be done. Although we all agree on the fact that plastic packaging is wasteful and should be done away with, we may have different ways to get there. Together, we can all stop the use of needless, single-use packaging in our shopping experiences.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. My podcast is Rethinking Rubbish: Circular Solutions for Cameroon's Waste Crisis. Every day, we wake up to the sight and smell of garbage piled up along the narrow lanes of our neighborhoods. Since we do not have well-coordinated waste collection and disposal services, residents resort to burning or dumping waste indiscriminately. That was Rosa, a resident of the Ekunu neighborhood in Yaoundé, the capital city of Cameroon, describing a reality known to millions across the developing world. I remember walking through the streets right after a heavy rain. The air smells of wet dust, ripe fruit, and plastic. You hear the water rushing through the gutters, trying to rush. Then suddenly it stops. The drains are stuffed with banana peels, cassava skins, corn husk, and empty plastic sachets, remnants of our daily lives that have been washed into a single messy stream of waste. It was normal, or so we thought. Years later, I keep asking myself, what if all that rubbish wasn't the end of something but the start? What if those banana peels and sachets were resources, not waste? That's what this episode is about. To answer a fundamental question relevant to developing countries like Cameroon, where landfills are overflowing. We'll talk about the preferred and realistic approaches that could actually work when handling municipal waste. And to keep it simple, we'll focus on two practical approaches: decentralized community composting and extended producer responsibility. But why these two? My argument is clear. The solution for developing countries like Cameroon does not lie in expensive high-tech systems. Rather, it must be an integrated waste management strategy built on these two mutually supporting pillars. So pull up a chair and let's rethink rubbish. Across the developing world from Nairobi to Dakar to Yaoundé, one side repeats itself. Landfills that were never meant to become mountains. Between 2012 and 2016, Sub-Saharan Africa's annual waste volume increased from 81 million tons to 174 million tons and is projected to reach 269 million tons in 2030. Most of this waste ends up in open dumps. Do you know what that really means? It means millions of people are living right next to their rubbish. The World Bank estimates that around 1 in 5 Africans live within 5 kilometers of an open dump site. Imagine the smell, the flies, the smoke from burning plastic drifting into your home. And then there's the human cost. The World Health Organization links poor waste management to diseases like cholera, typhoid, and diarrhea that still claims the lives of more than 400,000 children in Africa every year. Now, to give you a picture, Cameroon alone generates 6 million tons of municipal waste yearly. That's about 10,000 elephants worth of rubbish, and trust me, none of those elephants is going anywhere fast. In Yaoundé alone, roughly 3,600 tons of waste are produced daily, but only about 15% is collected properly. Now you might ask, but doesn't Cameroon already have a waste collection service? Yes, it does. Cameroon's main waste management company, Hisacam, is a failed one-way system. Collect, transport, dump. There is almost no sorting or recovery. If you're listening from Scotland, try picturing this. Imagine your bins in Edinburgh being emptied only once a month. Everything else from food scraps to wrappers and bottles just piling up at the end of your street. That's daily life in parts of Yaoundé. But why is this happening? Because the system focuses on collection and disposal rather than reduction and recovery. Municipal budgets are stretched thin, public education on waste separation is minimal, and frankly, we've come to see rubbish as someone else's job. Waste collection is viewed as something for the council or third people to handle. And trust me, nobody pays them enough to handle 10,000 elephants worth of rubbish. Problem is that this reactive approach is simply not equipped to manage the scale of waste. And here's the surprising part though. Over half of Cameroon's waste is organic food scraps. It's not just trash, it's potential fertilizer, potential income. But what do? We bury it. And when we bury it, it releases methane, a greenhouse gas 25 times stronger than carbon dioxide. So, we're not only wasting resources, we're also warming the planet. The good news is we are not the first to face this problem. Many nations have successfully pivoted from reactive disposal to circular strategies. Take Rwanda. In the mid-2000s, the country was struggling with widespread persistent plastic pollution from non-biodegradable bags. And in 2008, it banned these plastic bags. Strict, yes, but it worked because people believed in it. Today, Kigali is called one of Africa's cleanest cities. Rwanda showed us the power of strong policy. Then there is Kenya. In Mombasa and Kisumu, there was a flood of mixed waste, overwhelming dumps, and lack of formal jobs for waste pickers. In response, youth and women cooperatives turned informal waste picking into an organized, dignified system. And finally, India. Cities like Vadodara face the same challenge as Yaoundé. Huge amounts of food waste rotting in landfills. Women's self-help groups were organized to handle organic waste locally, turning kitchen scraps into compost that was sold to local farmers. This shows the power of practicality and community. So what if Cameroon could bring all three together? Strong policy, empowered people, and local practicality. This is where it all comes together. An integrated waste management strategy built on two solid pillars. Since more than half of the waste generated in Cameroon is organic, composting should be the heart of the system. This works best because it directly tackles the systemic weakness of stretched municipal budgets and inadequate collection infrastructure. Decentralized composting is less expensive, requires less qualified skills, and generates jobs for low-skilled labor. By setting up small composting centers run by community cooperatives at the market and district levels, we bypass the need for massive, expensive centralized collection and disposal. According to a review by African Waste Initiatives, such projects can cut landfill waste by up to 50%, reducing methane emissions significantly and supporting small-scale farming. It's cheap, local, and it works with the people. Now, what about the remaining plastics and packaging? Here's where smart policy comes in. Instead of an outright ban, Cameroon can introduce extended producer responsibility, EPR for short. This simply means that the companies that sell plastic bottles and packaging must help pay for their collection and recycling after consumer use. This policy tackles the problem of dedicated funding. The fees collected from these companies go straight to community recycling cooperatives, providing the essential capital they need for bins, gloves, and small collection vehicles. Together, composting and EPR create a circular system. It's like building a bridge from both sides. One pillar builds from the community up, the other supports from the policy down. When they meet in the middle, that's where circularity begins. It sounds elegant in theory, but we have to be critical. Is it really that easy to implement? Absolutely not. The road ahead is messy, literally and politically. The first challenge is source segregation. The success of composting hinges entirely on consistent separation at the source. If we can't be bothered to use different bins in the kitchen, the compost becomes contaminated and useless. One study in Yaoundé found that about 64% of households dispose of waste simply on the ground. Shifting that deep-seated behavior requires an intense, sustained, and expensive public awareness campaign. Can local authorities who are already struggling financially enforce mandatory source segregation without it becoming politically unpopular or leading to widespread non-compliance? That's the critical question. The second challenge is regulatory enforcement. EPR sounds great, but its success depends entirely on the government's capacity to rigorously monitor, audit, and enforce those regulations. If producers evade fees or if the funds are not ring-fenced specifically for the waste infrastructures, will those community cooperatives ever get the funding they need? Or will this become just another empty policy promise? The system is only as strong as its weakest link, and often that link is reliable funding and trust. The real test isn't just about infrastructure or policy. It's about whether we can sustain a culture of shared responsibility, a belief that waste management belongs to everyone, from household to government, from producer to consumer. But here's the hopeful bit. None of this is impossible. They just need planning, trust, and persistence. Let's go back to that choked gutter in Yaoundé, the one filled with banana peels and sachets. What if instead those peels were feeding crops that ended up back in the market? Cameroon's waste challenge isn't a lost cause. It's a missed opportunity waiting to be reclaimed. The two-pillar model, community composting plus EPR, offers a realistic, people-centered way forward. It leverages practicality, people, and policy to cut landfill volumes, reduce methane emissions, create jobs, and most importantly, restore dignity to the way we handle waste. As someone who has lived this reality, it's not only about waste, it's about clean streets, healthy soils, and empowered communities. These speak to who we are and what we value. So next time you see a banana peel, don't just think of waste. Think of soil, think of food, think of the chance to grow something new out of what we once threw away. Because sometimes the end of one story is just the start of another. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share with friends, and send us your feedback at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.